हेलो।
हाँ शैलेश है।
हाँ। तो
आप सिर्फ रीनेम कर दो अपने आप को।
हाँ। हेलो। मेरा नाम
हाँ ठीक है, मिल गया, मुझे मिल गया।
हाँ। फिलहाल मैं को होस्ट हूँ। रिकॉर्डिंग
हाँ मैं
रिकॉर्डिंग चालू है।
हाँ, रिकॉर्डिंग चालू रहने दो। मैंने आपको को होस्ट दिया है। अब जो विवेक लैपटॉप है ना, विवेक लैपटॉप को होस्ट दे दो। हाँ,
हम्म,
मैंने जो सिक्योरिटी में सेटिंग रहता है अपना वो करके रखा है।
हाँ।
वेटिंग रूम अनेबल है, चैट अनेबल है, रीनेम का एक्सेस दे सकते हैं
हम्म,
और वीडियो का एक्सेस दे सकते हैं। उसके बाद चैट जो है, मैंने चैट टू एवरीवन रखा है, मतलब एवरीवन कैन चैट।
वैसे ही रख लेना
और
एवरीवन, सब लोग आपका
हाँ
आपको कुछ ऐड कर सकते हैं। हाँ।
हाँ, यस यस यस।
हम्म,
ठीक है, अभी अभी मैं सिर्फ आपको वेलकम स्क्रीन भेजता हूँ। वो दूसरे लैपटॉप में है, वो लैपटॉप में अभी एक इवेंट चल रहा है।
हाँ।
मैं वहां पे जाके लेता हूँ।
और ये म्यूट म्यूट पार्टिसिपेट वाला
नहीं, पार्टिसिपेंट कैन नॉट अनम्यूट एनीवन, मतलब देमसेल्फ। उनको जब भी हमको देना है ना, तभी हम लोग करेंगे उनको अनम्यूट।
क्या ओके।
तो
ठीक
अभी
है।
अगर आपको कोई वेटिंग रूम में आता हुआ दिखेगा, तो आप मुझे नाम बताना, तो उनको करेंगे अपन एडमिट, नाम पता करके।
हम्म। ठीक है, मुझे नाम दे दो ना, कौन कौन है, 3 4 जन।
आगे मेरे पास। मैंने देखो आपको अभी है ना, चैट में एक लिंक भेजा है। तो
हाँ।
वेलकम स्क्रीन है इसका।
हाँ। ठीक
वो
है ये।
वीडियो ही है, अपन जैसा वीडियो प्ले कर रहे हैं ना वेबिनार में,
हाँ हाँ।
वैसा ही है।
ठीक है, पर उसने मुझे एक जन ने फोन करके बोला था कि वो फोटो पहले लगाना है, वो चालू होने से पहले।
ओ, आएंगे ना वो फोटो। हम अंत वर्षन लगता है, आएंगे ना, उनको बता देंगे कि हमने ऐसा बनाया है वेलकम स्क्रीन।
हम्म।
उनको क्या चाहिए, तुमको फोटो चाहिए कि वेलकम स्क्रीन चाहिए?
हम्म।
वो एज ए डीपी अपना यूज करे वो ठीक है, बट फोटो में है क्या वो?
फोटो एक नॉर्मल फोटो है और
अगर
शेयर
वो उसके बारे में कुछ बात कर रहा है तो ठीक है। ये लोग
ये नॉर्मल, ये शेयर बेसिक पे जाके शेयर करना है ना, वीडियो जो अपना वेलकम शेयर।
जूम में जाके, एडवांस में जाके,
हाँ अच्छा, एडवांस में जाके शेयर करना है
जूम एडवांस
वीडियो।
वीडियो, और वो ऑप्टिमाइज को अनचेक कर देना।
हाँ, ऑप्टिमाइज वीडियो को निकाल
अनचेक
देना।
कर देना, अनचेक कर देना, बंद कर देना उसको।
हम्म, और वीडियो पे।
ऑप्टिमाइज से क्या होता है ना, ऑप्टिमाइज से वीडियो का थोड़ा क्लैरिटी जो होता है ना,
हाँ हाँ,
वो वीक हो जाता है।
वीक हो जाता है, बताया था आपने।
इट फोकसेस मोर ऑन स्मूथनेस एंड लेस ऑन क्लैरिटी, बट अभी ये वीडियो में कुछ स्मूथनेस चाहिए नहीं, बिकॉज एक ही इमेज है।
हम्म। हम्म,
दिख गया।
दिख गया नहीं?
हम्म,
ये इसको मैक्सिमाइज करने की जरूरत है क्या?
नहीं नहीं चलेगा। ऑडियो पहले मेरे को आ रहा था, अभी नहीं आ रहा ऑडियो।
नहीं, मैंने बंद किया था, अभी
अच्छा, हाँ अभी आ रहा है, अभी आ रहा है। ठीक है, बंद कर दो सब, चलेगा।
अभी फिलहाल अभी फुल स्क्रीन दिख रहा है क्या आपको?
हाँ, मेरे को फुल स्क्रीन दिख रहा है, तो ये एडवांस का ऑप्शन वही है। एडवांस का एडवांटेज वही है कि इवन तो आपके वहाँ पे You can perform any other activity, but this video
मिनिमाइज किया तो भी
will
दिख रहा है ना?
हाँ दिख रहा है दिख रहा है।
ओके ठीक है चलेगा समझ गया। बस अभी मुझे खाली एक दो ही डाउट है, क्वेश्चन एंड आंसर्स
हाँ
कैसे?
वो क्वेश्चन आंसर वो आएंगे ना, मनीष मनीष भाई करके हैं जिन्होंने फोटो भेजा ना ग्रुप में।
हम्म।
देखो रिचार्ड नल करके कोई तो आया। अभी अपने को मालूम नहीं कि रिचार्ड नल को लेना है कि नहीं लेना है।
हाँ
लाइन खुद 245 को आने वाला है। मैं ये चेक करता हूँ कि क्या मैंने रिचार्ड नल को कैलेंडर इन्वाइट भेजा है कि नहीं भेजा है। ये फिरंगी है इसलिए टाइम पे आ गया। हाँ ले सकते हैं, इसको ले सकते हैं।
एडमिट करो।
इसको ले लो। हाँ ले लो ले लो ले लो।
इसमें लिंक किसको शेयर नहीं करनी है ना?
नहीं नहीं। Richard, hi, Vivek this side. Me and my colleague Shailesh are in this meeting. We both are tech support guys for this meeting.
नेचर यू ऑन म्यूट।
Yeah, I'm giving you an access to unmute. Richard, yes, good. Yeah, Richard, hi.
Hello,
We can
thank
hear
you.
you.
That's better. Upset
Yeah,
milk cushy hui.
same here, same here, same here. Yeah,
We
Can you
have
hear
one more
me?
participant to enter, Oliver.
yeah. We can admit him. Yeah, we can admit him.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I will mute myself now then, if that's okay.
Now we have one more user, Adam K.
Yeah, just let me see if he is from the invite list. Yeah, we can admit him also. Yeah, so Richard, during the entire meeting, are you going to speak anything? Because we are not giving the unmute access to everyone. We are giving unmute access to only organizer and speaker and all of those who are participating in uh, the discussion or in Q&A session. So that all the other attendees will be treated as normal attendee and they will not have access to unmute. But during a Q&A, if they want to speak, obviously they can send their questions in chat or they can request to unmute so that we can unmute them.
That sounds perfect, Vivek. In fact, that would be the preferred option, given that running seminars can often be a bit difficult. So
Correct,
this is a good option. Thank you.
correct, correct. So we have Manish Bhai with us in this meeting. Manish Bhai, I'm giving you Shailesh, you can give co-host access to Manish Daga and Samar Tupkar.
Okay.
And for the time being, we can allow everyone to speak. I am giving unmute access to all of you. All of you can unmute yourself, but once we go live in front of the audience, unmute access will be with only with the host and co-hosts.
Okay. So I given Sampath a co-host and one more. Which
Yes,
is it? Manish.
Manish Daga. Manish Daga, yes.
Done.
Hi, can you hear me? Hi.
Yeah, we
Yes.
can. Manish Bhai. Welcome.
Let's see if I can increase my.
Manish Bhai, is Rajendra Karpe from your team?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, done. I have taken him in.
Yeah.
Oliver, hi. Vivek this side, tech support guy for this meeting. Just want to do a quick sound check with you.
Certainly. Happy to talk while you do that.
Yeah,
Can
yeah.
you hear me?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
everything
it's
fine?
working fine. Yeah.
Phew.
Adam, hi. Can we do a check with you also?
Certainly can. How are you this evening? Hello, Manish. Nice to see you.
Hi, same here.
And didn't we time this meeting terribly? I can hear the family upstairs listening to Australia versus South Africa now.
You had said it that India
But-
must beat England
Uh,
and we
oh,
must
oh.
beat each other in the finals.
That's all I'm hoping for, Manisha. Australia, India grand final. You know, how wonderful would that be?
Correct, and they are doing so well. South Africa have already lost 2 wickets very early.
Yes, it's a long game, 50 overs. It's a long game. But
Yes,
no, that would be exciting.
there is definitely somebody listening to you, Adam. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Hi, Oliver. Dr. Oliver, how do you do?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you all.
Same here. The pleasure is very much ours also. And so glad to see you here in this event.
You're very welcome.
Have you tested the screen sharing yet, Oliver?
Not
yes,
yet.
we do that.
No. Should we give that a go?
What do you think?
From all of you who want to share a screen, because sharing access is not with everyone right now.
Oliver,
I think
you
wants
definitely
to-
share the screen.
Oliver, yeah, if Dr. Knox could share his screen because he'll run his presentation.
Correct.
That'd
Yes,
be handy.
yes.
Yeah.
Shailesh, you can give co-host to Dr. Knox.
Okay.
Okay, let's give it a go then. Oh, not yet.
Wait. Let me reconfirm it.
Done.
Yeah, sir, you can share the screen now.
Okay. Oh, we've got to press an extra button, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
That's always handy then. Oh, I'm getting all sorts of information now about people to invite and stuff. Okay, I'll just end that for the moment. So I'm glad that's working.
Yes.
Wonderful.
So just a quick run through. Acha, can we admit Richard Godfrey? He is in the waiting room right now. Okay. So just doing a quick check on the flow. 3 p.m. India time is the scheduled start time for all the attendees. We may go live 2 minutes before the scheduled start time, and we will have a welcome screen with the music. I am just sharing here for reference. Just allow me a minute. So this is a sample holding screen which we will be showing once we go live. This screen will be there for the initial 3-4 minutes once the audience is settling in and they're getting comfortable. Once we see a decent number of attendees in the meeting, Manish bhai, you can just interrupt us, or you can just put in the group that we are good to go live. And once you get a go ahead from your side, we will stop the welcome screen and then you can take over from there.
Sure.
Okay. For the Q&A session, you can mention during your speech that audience can use the chat box for sending all the questions. If at all they want to speak live, they can request in the chat section, or they can use a raise hand button so that we can unmute them once all the speeches are done.
So you're going to hold questions to the end, basically.
Yes.
Okay, that's cool.
Yes. Because we wanted to run through the presentation uninterrupted, Dr. Oliver, so that
Correct. So usually we keep
if
Q&A
the
in
questions
the
are
end only.
answered
So that,
upfront, there is no need to ask that question, right? Yeah, Vivek, please continue.
yeah. So flow is first is welcome screen. Then Manish bhai will take over. Then Manish bhai will hand over to Dr. Knox. After that, Dr. Knox will carry on with his presentation, and after that, again Manish bhai can chip in for giving his feedback on the presentation. By the time audience can start sending in questions, and we can answer those questions.
Vivek, there's a slight deviation. When I give the opening statement, I will invite Adam from Cotton, Australia, and then
Okay.
Richard from Australian High Commission Agriculture Division to speak also, because this is a common initiative of all three of us, and it is good that all
Perfect.
three of us share our respective thoughts on why and the journey of starting this collaboration, and then I will introduce Dr. Oliver, read out his brief bio, and then I will invite him to start the presentation.
Perfect. Done. Okay, noted.
Anything else, Vivek? I mean, if anybody has who's attending or gets into the Zoom live, and if you need to mute them, sometimes we don't.
So,
There's a sound coming
correct.
from some of us. You can mute all of us.
Yes.
Ensure that only the speaker is on unmute. Correct?
Yes. So before going live, we will enable a setting by which only co-host can keep their mic unmuted. Rest all will be on a compulsory mute.
Right.
Right. So right now, co-host access is with managed by you, Dr. Oliver Knox, Samat Topkar Patil. These three guys have the co-host access. If you want me to give co-host access to Adam Key, I can
Please,
give the
Adam
access
and
to him
Richard,
also.
you both give that co-host
Yes.
option to them.
Yeah, done.
Yeah.
Wait, Adam, I given the access to Adam K.
Yeah, and you can give access to Richard also.
Richard, okay.
And yeah.
Richard, Kriti will be joining.
Yes, Kriti should be joining, and we might also be
You
joined
should
by
ask
my
Vivek to
colleague.
let her in. If Kriti Khurana joins Vivek, she's from the Australian High Commission. Please
Okay.
let her inside the
Done.
Zoom. Right?
Done. Okay.
Anybody from your side, Adam, joining, whom we should let in?
No, I think I've sort of kept it so that it's really from your side, because our people have heard Dr. Knox speak before a lot, so he is very well known in Australia, so it's really about sharing his information with your colleagues.
Great. No problem. Anyone from your side, Dr. Oliver, whom we should let inside the Zoom room?
No, that some of the university staff and some of the Cotton Info people know I'm doing this, but none of them expressed an interest at this. I'm sorry, this time of night. Most of them at the moment are already doing early season bug checking from 4 or 4:30 in the morning, so they're probably already in bed.
I think you are enough for this presentation, and you don't need any additional support for this. Fine enough. I think Vivek, it's all fine. And if we can, greet the guests whom we have joined, is it possible? Some of them. Vivek, is it possible we can greet the guests? Can they hear us?
Yeah, they can hear us. Yeah.
Welcome, Dr. Balkrishna Jade. How do you do?
Yeah, Dr. Balkrishna, you can speak. Your mic is open.
Hello,
Yes, Dr. Jade, how do you do?
I'm fine, sir. What about you?
Doing fine, sir, by grace of God. So nice to see you.
Very good, sir. I'm very pleased to meet you.
Just for the kind information of everybody who's attending, Dr. Jade is from Jain Irrigation. He's a very renowned scientist, works deeply on increasing the productivity of cotton, has a mastery in cotton disease management, and has direct interaction with farmers. That's what I love about him. He doesn't work in the lab, he works in the farm directly. So nice to see you, Sandeep ji. Welcome to this event. Dr. Kumar.
Before we go live, all the attendees have an access to unmute so that we can do an informal discussion. And once we go live, we will focus only on the presentation. So we can have a kind of interaction here. So Dr. Kumar, you can unmute, you can speak. Yeah, possible from your side.
Yeah, Dr. Kumar, Sandeep ji, any thoughts on what do you expect from this event?
Yeah. In
Hello,
fact,
Dr. Kumar, how do you do?
yeah, I'm good. I'm good, Manish. It's good to see you all. In fact, all stalwarts, working the field, and especially because soil is a matter which is really a matter of concern
Correct.
And not for cotton alone, but for the entire, if you see all crops, is the same the situation.
True.
And the steady or the declining productivity of most of the crop, and people often tell that seed is not good and all that. But the fact of the matter is that the main issue is the soil, and it's very often said that because of the excess fertilizers and nutrients in it, it has happened. And to some extent, that's fine. I agree to that. But see, in this situation, we from the time of independence, we were in a situation that we had no option. We had to resort to chemical-based, cultivation to feed our population. And in that really of getting independence or self-sufficiency in food crops, we neglected the soil, and the result we are seeing now. But then, nevertheless, basically what the continuous cultivation of same crop, no crop rotation, as I am seeing in for example cotton area, except for in a part of Punjab and all that, it's the same crop year after year, and there's no crop rotation. So the kind of depletion of nutrition, the nutrients taking place from one crop, that is continuously going on for the same. Then the matter of organic matter, it is terribly depleted. It's hardly 0.2%. I know in Gujarat condition, the organic matter is miserably low. I remember in 81 I joined cotton, and 81 the farm at Surat, which is 130 years old now, that time it was 0.5%.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, sir. Sorry to interrupt, sir. We
Yeah.
are at the start time now, so we can have these discussions at a later stage. So right now we are going live in front of the audience. So
Okay.
I am just doing all the checks.
Two options that you have. You can write down your questions in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. We will definitely invite you to ask. There are 15 to 20 minutes we have specifically kept for question answers, and I'll request Dr. Oliver, please be patient, and there would be a lot of questions, of course, and please try to address all of them, or at least the major question that you find relevant, and then we can have a closing statement from all of you. Yeah, Vivek, continue. Welcome, all of you. Welcome to this very important as well as a significant event, that is a webinar on soil conservation to enhance the productivity of cotton. Now, why was the need of such a webinar when everybody knows soil is definitely important? There are two very specific reasons for that. One is Australia and India. Australia, the country which has the highest productivity of cotton in the world, and India, which is the biggest producer of cotton in the world with about 37% of world land under cotton agriculture. You can understand the significance of these two countries individually, but both of them coming together can create a miracle. A miracle has happened on 29th December 2022, when an economic cooperation and trade agreement was signed between these two countries. It is the first ever foreign trade agreement between these two countries for bilateral trade and technology exchange. And why not take the benefit in cotton and textile? That is what we thought. Now, who are these we? We is a collaboration of All India Cotton Farmer Producer Association, an association comprising of over 200 farmer producer organizations as its members, with a combined strength of over 100,000 farmers from 7 states of India. That is All India Cotton Farmer Producer Association. Along with that came Cotton High Commission, came Australia as High Commission in Agriculture. The Australian High Commission in Agriculture, they also had very similar thoughts on what we can do together in cotton and textile. And then came Cotton Australia. Who else do you need to combine and collaborate to get a miracle in cotton and textile? So all three of us collaborated together and thought that this is the right time, this is the right opportunity to come together to pave a roadmap for a combined bilateral growth of these two countries. Over 85% of all Australian goods exports by value to India are now tariff-free. And this has risen by, expected to rise by 90% up to January 2026. India is Australia's 6th largest trading partner, with two-way trade in goods and services valued at 46.5 billion. That was 2022. It is expected to double in the next 3 years. That is the target we all carry. India's growth creates opportunities for Australia's agriculture goods, especially cotton, as well as technology exchange in cotton productivity. Similarly, Australia's growth creates opportunities for Indian textiles and apparels, as well as technology exchange in textile manufacturing. So many things to look forward to. So many things are possible if we network at the right time, if we collaborate at the right time, and ultimately if we act at the right time. So that was the reason myself, Manish Daga, President and Coordinator of All India Cotton FPO Association, and Dr. Richard Nile, First Secretary, Agriculture, Australian High Commission, and Adam Kay, CEO of Cotton Australia, got together with a common thought, a common mission, a common outcome in mind of helping Indian farmers increase their productivity and increasing bilateral trade between Australia and India, especially in cotton and textiles. So this is synergizing the resources of two countries, two major countries in the world today, India and Australia, two most growing countries, we can say, and two most relevant and significant countries as far as cotton and textiles is concerned. So this is the opening statement that I wish to make. A very important topic today is soil, seed, soil, and weather determine the productivity. That is what I, as a farmer representative, can only say in layman's words, that if these three things were taken care of, our productivity would definitely grow multifold, at least meet the world average. That is the primary target that all three of us are carrying. So starting with seed, we are having this first series of webinar on seed. This will be followed by soil. After that would be weather. And if your support continues, we will find other topics which you the audience would suggest, and this education series would continue, culminating maybe into a project where we will implement the Australian technologies in India, and we will implement the Indian manufacturing, strategies in Australia. So that is the primary aim that we carry. I invite Dr. Richard Nile, First Secretary, Australian High Commission, to share his thoughts on this event and this collaboration.
Thank you, Mr. Manish Daga. It's such a pleasure to be here today. Can I just please confirm that you can hear me? Fantastic.
We can hear you.
I just wanted to say it's such a pleasure to be here today at this seminar series. I note that my colleague Shweta Prabhakar and also Ms. Kriti Khurana from the Australian High Commission are also joining me here today in a show of our support for this great cooperation between India and Australia. May I also extend my congratulations to India for making it to the grand final of the cricket. We are very much looking forward to hopefully an Australia versus India grand final, and I note that we are approximately 25 for 3 wickets against South Africa at the moment. So there is good hope that there will be an India-Australia grand final. We are certainly working towards that.
You have set it up, Dr. Richard.
So I wanted to talk about 2 words today as part of my opening remarks, Mr. Manish, Adam Kay, and Oliver Knox. Productivity and quality. The agriculture cooperation between Australia and India is growing. We are seeing this happen across a number of different sectors. Wine in improving regulatory capabilities across both countries and quality. Dairy by helping to improve and exchanging knowledge on methane mitigation techniques and genetics. Wool by exchanging knowledge on some of our shearing and also our wool grading techniques. And then finally, Mr. Manish Daga called my office a few weeks ago asking if we could look at some cooperation initiatives between Australia and India on cotton. And I'm so pleased now to see the friendship blossom between CEO Adam Kay and Mr. Manish Daga. I think that this is just the start, and I'm hopeful for a deep partnership in future across our industries as we look to this mutually beneficial 2-way trade opportunity, as well as an opportunity to help enhance the productivity and the quality of cotton produced in both India and Australia. Thank you, Mr. Manish.
Yes. Thank you. That was Dr. Richard Nile, First Secretary, Australian High Commission, based out of New Delhi. Very much an Indian, by his nature. I couldn't believe he also speaks very chaste Hindi, and at the right time. So that's really creditable, Dr. Richard, and such a pleasant personality to be a very positive person. And so the next person I want to introduce you to all is Adam Kay. The first time that I spoke to him, and the first thing that struck me about him is his positivity, the radiance of positivity that Adam has. The first thought that he gave us, yes, we was the word he used. Let us do it. So us, we, these words are only used by people who are visionaries, who think long, who don't think about themselves alone, think about themselves, the society, the environment, the people around us. And so nice of you, Adam, to be part of this collaboration, and you have brought Cotton Australia to this collaboration. I invite you to share your opening thoughts on this webinar before I invite Dr. Oliver Knox, who would be, raring to go.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Daga, for that introduction. And it is truly a thrill to be at this first Australia-India cotton collaboration, this webinar that we've worked to put on, and hopefully it goes a long way, because it's so exciting to be working together to grow better cotton, to improve this magical natural fibre that we all produce. My name's Adam Kay, as Mr. Daga has mentioned, and I am from Cotton Australia, which is the peak body for cotton growers in Australia. So it's the body that represents all our farmers, and so it's just lovely to be working with farmers in India, and we've just got so much in common. And we both are incredible producers of this magnificent natural fibre cotton, and we also produce the best cricketers in the world. So, cotton and cricketers, we're very good at it. I think you might have the edge on the cricketers at the moment, but maybe Sunday will answer that. But no, it truly is. We've got so much in common that we can work together, on cotton. So, it's just a thrill to be on this call tonight. And I don't want to say anything more because I'm excited that Dr. Knox, who is a very, very respected soil scientist, he's a real field soil scientist that the farmers love. He talks in the farmer language. He helps our farmers understand their soils and better manage their soils. And so I think I'm just so excited that he can share some of his soil knowledge with you. And I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot through the questions you ask him. I think this is genuinely a two-way flow of information. And so I really look forward to the questions that you ask Dr. Knox. So thank you, Mr. Daga, for the opportunity to work with you. And I just look forward to hearing what Dr. Knox share his knowledge.
Thank you. That was Adam K, CEO of Cotton Australia, a very, very well-known personality in Australia and a very passionate student of cotton, I can say. And now I will not take any time, away from all of you. And I would like to invite Dr. Oliver Knox. Why soil was chosen, I already shared. It's a very, very important component of increasing productivity, and we have neglected it enough now to focus on it right now if we need to have a better tomorrow from here on in terms of productivity, sustainability, even food security, and especially in cotton raw material security and quality, as Dr. Richard mentioned. But Dr. Oliver Knox, he was trained as a social scientist at the University of Aberdeen, where his interests in agriculture and soil health were also stimulated. After university, Oliver's career saw him move to Australia and a position within the cotton research community. During this time, he investigated the impact, or rather lack of, genetically modified crops on the soil microbiology and the reduction in pesticide use associated with GM adoption. Such a deep thought. Oliver has been pioneering soil engagement activities and soil health practices for all, and will share his insights into soil health developed from years of studying soil in numerous agricultural systems. That is important. We need the relevance country-wise. We need the relevance even area-wise sometimes, because soil languages vary from every 50 kilometers. And that Dr. Oliver would have realized long back that one thing that works in one place may or may not work in any other place. The floor is open for you, Dr. Oliver. Please enlighten us with your expertise and your experience on how soil conservation, soil management can change the scenario from where we stand right now, are compromising yields, decreasing productivity, and increasing costs for the cotton farmers.
Thank you, Manish. That's a fair challenge. I'm going to throw up a screen if that's all right. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to come and do this tonight. And I hope you're not disappointed. As you'll see, there is stuff about asking questions in the chat. And please hold off the questions to the end. I will hang around and I will try to get through as quickly as possible so that basically we can have some discussion. I'm going to talk about a soil health framework, which we're using here in Australia. We came about because there was external pressures to look at our soils as well as our other environmental indicators. And we were struggling, but we think we have a framework which fits our agricultural setting, not just our cotton, which has come up a couple of times in conversation in the intro, but various things. Let's crack into this. And that's where I press a button and nothing happens. And you kind of go, oh, no, come on. I'll use this button over here. There we go. In Australia, we traditionally pay respects to where we are in the country. I am today on Anawan land. It's also shared with the Ngati and the Budjalong people. I get to spend my time on a lot of country. So the comment there about the different soils we see, certainly some are exposed to. In the image there on the left are local soils being used by an Indigenous artist to map out our country as we sit in it here in Armidale. But it's phenomenal as we get about the country that we get to share our experiences with all of these traditional custodians of our land. And it's important, I think, that I guess we come back to our soil. Whether we're looking at the ecosystem, the trees, the animals that live within it, soil is the one thing that unites us all. Cotton in this case as well, but soil is definitely the heart of it. And with that in mind, something I've actually seen happen in Europe quite effectively is the existence of a celebrity farmer. So this is a farmer by the name of Jimmy Doherty, who is a celebrity farmer. People listen to him. And I think most of us would agree that the power of social media, the impact that our stories have, is now almost more important sometimes than our science. But Jimmy very kindly pointed out to the populace of Europe a few years ago, we can only grow food on 4% of the Earth's surface. Our climate's changing and resources like water and fuel are under threat. And you go, great, Jimmy, but you've missed out the big one there, haven't you? You've missed out soil. And I think that's a real shame, because he as a farmer could have said, you know what, the thing that unites everybody is our requirement for healthy and productive soil. And why is this? How many of you have picked up a handful of soil and given it a smell? Or you've noticed that odor of petrochlor before a thunderstorm? Soil is alive. And that's something I think I try to instill either in my activities with farmers or with school groups or with the general public, in that soil is more than just dirt. It is a living ecosystem. And as such, it's also fragile. To protect that life, to prevent it being degraded or damaged, is therefore quite important, because soil is produced very slowly. Be that from the mineral breakdown of the rocks, the parent material, through to that buildup of biological life within it, to the point where it can sustain plants. It takes a long time, but our activities as man, whether it's through crop destruction, through plowing, through building our environment, and these are things I've come back to, can lead to that loss very, very rapidly. So to protect this wonderful ecosystem, which we do rely on, we need to very much take care of it. And so to do that, we like to have this concept around soil health. We want our soils to be healthy, to be productive. And whether we're looking at the FAO's definition of soil health, or whether we're looking at something that comes from Doran and Zeiss back in 2003, it's almost always about a soil that performs its given function in a sustainable way. And even there, we can already start to go, well, what is its function? Is it just food and fiber production? Are we fighting with its need to provide a structure for our buildings and our roads? Is it the minerals that people want to extract from our soils to sell as well? And what's sustainable? How far do we want to push sustainability? You can debate that all you like, but the ethos is there, is it not? That we want our soils to be functional and to be able to do it consistently. So if that's the case, then how do we know how healthy our soils are at the moment? How do we know that our soils are healthy? And if we're worried about that, then are we asking that because we believe we've already made it worse? And if we have made it worse, then the next question we should surely ask when it comes to health is, how do we make it better? And these are very good questions. And although science tells us that that's what soil health is, I've been asking farmers this question for the last 6 years, and they tell me what soil health is to them. And they don't look at functions and sustainability. They tell me it's about their carbon, their balance, their profitability, their organic matter, their fertility, being fit for purpose. They'll tell me it's about humic substances, oxygen. They tell me it's about everything, all of these incredible things that their soil provides to them. And depending often on what's happening right in front of them will depend on which one they put the most emphasis on. But as a scientist, then trying to understand this concept of soil health as seen by our producers, it all really becomes very complex, doesn't it? Because all of those words are words that farmers have told me soil health is to them. Would I measure all of those things then in order to come up with an indicator? Could I potentially do it? I think that's a real challenge. And so we're often faced with what it is we're looking at. And that's something I want to try and unpick a little bit later on. Because at the moment, when we ask the question of what soil health is, what can we do as soil scientists? What is available? What tools do we have? Well, we can do soil testing. We can go out, we can take a sample from the soil, from the field, we can send it off to a laboratory, and we can get back the results. But it's very chemically focused. When it tells us about our nitrogen, our phosphorus, our potassium, our sulfur levels, our organic carbon, it's very much about that chemical focus. And often when we do these tests, we might take a composite sample, but is it really actually indicative of a whole field or an area of a field? There's that challenge. And one of the things I think I've noticed a lot, or I see evidence when I speak to a lot of growers, is firstly, only a small proportion of our growers are probably actually carrying out these chemical tests. And of them, there's maybe only a half or so that are then actually making their chemical or fertilizer decisions based on those tests. A lot of the time, it's that business as usual kind of ethos that comes along. So we still need to raise the bar in terms of a level of education about how do we make better use of these soil chemical testings. We have other aspects out there we can measure, say the physical or the structural aspects of our soil, which I'd imagine many of us in this webinar will know is incredibly important. That pore structure, the aggregate stability, all of these things we desire. And we have a number of tests out there that allow us to do that. One of my favorites is the visual evaluation of soil structure, the VES, partly because I know Bruce Ball, who was involved in its development with SAC and Embrapa. It's very simple. It's a spade lift. You look at the aggregate structure, you look at the physicality of the soil, you look at the porosity, you give it a score. What you do with that score is up to you. But if you don't basically change management and continue to measure, then it has little impact. The FAO, when they did their evaluation back in 2017, decided that the visual soil assessment was the best guide for assessing our soil health. And one thing I've noticed in doing this with farmers is when I go into country, many of them will tell me that the test doesn't go far enough. It doesn't ask them about their knowledge, how they have used man's ingenuity to get the most from their soil. They also tell me that it lacks the biological component in that it only looks at earthworms. So whilst these tests are simple and informative and start that discussion, perhaps they are just that too simple. However, in undertaking that, we can discuss management options. We can discuss the sorts of changes that might be considered by a farmer if he was to think about his soil and some of the changes that these tests highlight. They also address often our need to quantify our soil health. The VES gives us a score between 0 and 5. The VSA gives us a score between 0 and 42. We have numbers, and people love numbers. Don't you all love numbers? We start out talking about the billions of dollars that cotton is worth to everybody. We love numbers. We're educated in a schooling system that basically grades us and assesses us based on numbers, and we love that continuation. But do these go far enough? Possibly not. There are other techniques out there, of course. The Charisma project, run out of Germany and carrying out in Africa at the moment, proposes the palm technique in relation to soil health. And there they have the 5 fingers that they use to basically help with their cotton establishment. Really simple, field-focused, engaging with the farmers and the people that do it. Doesn't need a laboratory. Extension officers can go into the paddock and quickly talk to farmers about their soil. Again, it does a lot of things around soil testing, so hand texturing, looks at aggregate stability in water, smells the soil, looks for some of the invertebrate life. Very simple. And the thing that maybe we also have to remember, though, is that while some of these simple tests exist, we're also being reminded by the science as to how many tests we should actually be taking. Guayali's paper earlier this year in Geoderma basically said if we're not taking 5 or 6 samples from a hectare, we're not getting enough to actually tell us what the soil biology is particularly playing at or what it's doing. That's a real challenge. Harris and his work also last year basically came out and said, you know what, we've got to throw out what we currently do in our soils and start again, thinking about the physical, the biological, and the functional aspects of our soil and reassessing it. Now, I looked at that paper and I thought that's it. That's what we need to do if we really want to be serious about our soils. But who would do that work? How much would that work cost? And I thought maybe he's just angling for a grant, and it turns out they are. But there is a lot going on in our soils. And why is this? It's because we know they are important. We are passionate about wanting to make them better. The challenge, though, is how do we do that in a way that is cost effective, but also delivers impact? That's why I ask people to soil their undies. It takes the biological, the chemical, and the physical aspects of their soil. It's accessible to everybody. And it's just really a modification of the cotton strip assay. But to go on farm and say to someone, would you like to do a Shirley soil burial strip assay, and we'll then get a tensiometer and test it, doesn't really work. But if you ask someone to soil their undies, here in Australia, it's engaging. Across a lot of the world, it's engaging. Did it in Sweden, where they had to soil their face cloth. But it's accessible, and it shows that life in the soil. The degradation of those cellulose fibers, that wonderful breakdown, just back to the man-made fibers in itself, it's visually very engaging. And then the conversation starts. If your pants come back not broken down, well, why was that? What was wrong? How can you help me? What do I need to do to change my soils? And one of the things we've noticed with this sort of stuff is the competition between farmers. You know, farmers with very degraded pants will stand around a clothes horse with these pants hanging on and their little bit of soil saying how wet it is. Those who hang it up and say that nothing's happened, they'll run away. Or they'll start that conversation. So it's a great engagement tool. What goes on? But it's still just a tool, isn't it? We still want to get back to that idea about, well, how do we know our soil is healthy? Maybe we could learn from ourselves. How do you all know you're healthy? Did you wake up this morning and just go, that's it, I'm awake? Probably. Did you take your pulse? Did you measure your breath? Did you go and see a doctor to make sure that there's nothing wrong with you? Well, no, we don't do that because it has an impost on our time and it costs. So we normally just determine our own health. I'm up this morning and I'm healthy. If we got up this morning and we didn't feel well, then we would probably go and seek out some medical assistance, wouldn't we? So we look for help when we don't feel well. And because there's a cost, an imposition associated with that, health providers basically promote, or governments promote, healthy practices rather than those individual isolations or measures. So rather than screening everybody every morning for all sorts of ailments, we just support things like healthy eating, exercise, rest and relaxation. We support healthy practices. And maybe there's something from that that would fit soil health. Because what are the best indicators of soil health? You know, the chemical lab test does the chemical stuff. The physical field test does the physical tests. Biological, still largely in the remit of the researchers and the laboratories. So ask yourself, when you look at these kind of things as well, who are they for? Who's actually are these tests for? Is it for government to capture money? Is it for government to capture information about the status of our soils? Or is it actually to provide the land managers, the people that are looking after that environment, with tools that are useful to them to implement or make practice changes to improve their soils? There's that old saying, isn't there? You can't manage what you can't measure. But what are we measuring? Are we measuring the right thing? And does measurement have to be a quantifiable amount? How do you quantify happiness if you think you're doing the right thing? And where we generally go wrong when we're looking at those indicators is we forget that soil is a very holistic system. And we try to pigeonhole things, don't we? We ignore that heterogeneity of soil at our peril, because soil is complex. And I do mean it is complex. It goes beyond complicated. That physical environment, the aggregates, the pore space, the chemistry associated with that moving in the pore water, phenomenally complicated. The biology that then exists within and around that system then adds to that complexity. And above it all, we impose our management systems, trying to alter or implement change in one of those areas so that we can get better crop productivity. It is a very, very complicated and complex system that is hugely variable. And our role as land managers or as farmers is often to try and predict what our changes will do within all of those spheres to produce better crops. And so we turn to science or we turn to government for advice around our soils, and we're picking off the one or two things. We're not thinking of it as a whole. And that's very difficult. And the other thing we need to remember is that many of these physical properties, chemical properties, and biological properties vary over time. And to exemplify that, here's a cotton system. Over on the left, we've got the bare fallow field getting ready, not even hilled up. We come along, we fresh up the top of the soil, we plant our cotton seed. The biology starts to wake up. The weather is warming up. The biology is driven by warmth. It's driven by water. As the plants start to grow, their photosynthetes from the leaf, some of them are pushed into the soil, feeding that biology. The biology is now both expanding in terms of its biomass and also in terms of its activity. Then we start to irrigate in many systems. The irrigation adds that life-giving water, not just to the plants, but also to the biology. The canopy closes over, peak photosynthetic capability, maximum exudate feeding of the soil biology, nutrients are being turned over like you wouldn't believe, and everything is at a full-on party. Happens. Roots start to senesce, biomass starts to pull those nutrients back out of the plant and into the bowls to produce the linted seed. By the time we get to picking, there's virtually no activity under the ground, but we've defoliated. So the surface of the soil is now alive with fungal activity and the associated nematodes and protozoa that are maybe feeding on those. Once we've picked, If we're doing mechanical picking, we've probably caused a bit of compaction. Again, lowering the soil biology before winter sets in and everything cools down. Time is therefore hugely important. Water is important. The environment in which we find ourselves is therefore hugely important. And we're looking for indicators to be specific about the health of our soil. Tricky stuff. So bearing that in mind, how do we come up with a soil health framework? Where do you start? Well, I think you have to realize that it's simple, but not simplified. You have to, I think, believe that there's a good level of education in your audience. You have to learn from them, as well as not trying to teach, but trying to help them on a journey. It's important. I like to think it should be developed on science rather than beliefs. But some people's beliefs about the systems they operate, about the way they farm, are incredibly strong. The system we have is not really about regenerative farming or carbon farming. Not because they're bad ideas or wrong, but to me, we already have systems that are regenerative. Our best management practices, in theory, align with a lot of the philosophy that is regenerative farming. Carbon, building carbon in our soils is a phenomenal task. And yes, it should be the goal of almost all of our production systems to increase our soil carbon. But should we be able to do it, or could we even do it to the extent that we can capitalize and make additional profitability from it? Not always, especially here in Australia, and I dare say in large parts of India, where our production systems are rain limited. We're never going to grow enough carbon to grow so much plant biomass that we can almost saturate the requirement or the hunger of the soil biology to basically use that carbon up. I believe the systems need to be aspirational, not prescriptive. There are so many examples where prescriptive agriculture throughout history has failed. Sri Lanka being one of the most recent examples of where a decision to basically ban everything caused almost collapse of their agricultural system. So we want to have people's ability to farm the way that works for them where they are, trust in man's ingenuity, and provide them with tools to make those practice changes for the better. And when it comes to being measurable, when it comes to actually looking for what the things are that we're after the change in, it's the appropriate scale. If you think about getting a small amount of soil for lab testing, how does that 300, 400 grams represent the paddock? How does that paddock represent the farm? How does that farm fit within the landscape? That landscape within the state or region, that state or region within the country. We need to think about those scales. And here in Australia, and I suspect probably in India too, there's a bit around the social license, how the public perceive our farming, what they want our farming to look like. So we have to be mindful of that as well. We were developing a lot of ideas around COVID, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs came up an awful lot, all this wonderful stuff about what we need as humans. Once again, that reflection on ourselves in terms of driving this decision. But really, the only one that is applicable comes down to that idea around psychological needs and the physiological needs. If we think about those, then what is it we really strive for? What is it we need? Really, all we need is food and shelter. Could we take that and apply that to soil? Would that be enough then to develop a framework that met those earlier criteria? Could we make it simple? Could we make it deliverable, aspirational? Can we fit everything if we just think about that needs for food and shelter? And we think we made it. Now, we didn't come up with this just off our back. We looked at what others were doing. We looked around the world. We spoke to other industries here in Australia and said, you know what? If we think that our soil's health is really improved by protecting that biological habitat, that space between the aggregates where our biology is most active, and if we think about the ways in which we feed it, then we have two nice and simple goals, if you like, to reach for. And the way in which we do those, well, we maximize our soil cover, we minimize disturbance, we put as much living root and plant material back into that system as we can. And the comment made about rotations, very important, because we try to maximize our diversity. But we're aware we do this in a rain-poor environment. We're aware there are limits to what can and can't be done. So it's aspirational. But we know there are many cropping practices that will help us with this. Standing stubble, cover cropping, compost, biosolids, manures, looking at minimum tillage, and where we can, even zero tillage practices, embracing our integrated pest management, whether it's for weeds, diseases, or insects, to actually help us get our chemical burden on our system correct, making those right fertilizer choices. And many of these things go right across that landscape, looking at the cover cropping, thinking about biological amendments in any size, shape, and form. And all of these we know have natural flow and effects through to our soils production capabilities. Do we need to measure each of those things then that are down the bottom? No, because we know that if farmers are engaging in healthier soil management practices, things will be better. So that's what we're trying to get a feel for, to make things better by measuring farmers' activities rather than measuring those specifics. So some of the challenges, though, that then come about is because of our impost on the world. Someone asked the question, should we then all be going organic? Is organic vastly superior to conventional? Well, what is conventional farming? If man is so inventive that we do things that fit our environment, there is no prescribed conventional farming. Organic is certainly better than doing nothing. And that's something I think we need to think about. Often organic systems come through because they are seen as a choice. They're driven by consumers. But there may well also be that future need for organic systems because we are likely to run out of mineral oils or gas that we use to produce many of our fertilizers. So how do we get better? Do we have the resources in terms of biosolids or manures or compost to actually meet crop requirements to continue to produce the levels we do? I've worked in a lot of organic systems, and often people say to me, they just don't produce as much. And yes, and maybe they don't, but they can still produce profitably. And it's about finding that balance. But it's also about being realistic. If we can't grow the same amount of biomass, we can't feed that soil organic carbon pool, we can't build up the soil organic matter, and we can't continue to feed the biology to drive those wonderful cycles that we rely on to the same extent. And if we let that system crumble and we still try to force yields from it, then we actually end up mining the soil organic matter and lowering our soil organic carbon. It's complicated, as I said. So a lot of this systems is then around managing expectations and thinking about, what is our input, what is our offtake, and what is our output? What is the plant actually doing in our system? And being realistic with regard to those expectations of how far we can push or derive goodness from any of these systems. I have to say, I do love a lot of organics, particularly from the point of the biosolids and the manures, because they add that wonderful organic matter to our system. But they also need time. And that's something that has to come back a lot. Does land degradation impact yield? Oh, absolutely. Yes. Some examples I put up here, bottom left. That's a field drain in the Ukraine where I don't want to pick apart what they did over there, but basically mechanized farming, if you like, built cooperatives from individual smallholder farms and threw on a load of fertilizer onto what was a fairly pristine system to the extent that they over-fertilized. And someone was mentioning that at the very beginning. That land drain is running green because the algae are blooming because of the amount of nitrogen fertilizer that's running off the fields. Erosion is a major challenge in a lot of our systems. Land disturbance, a lack of cover, water erosion, wind erosion. I've got a wonderful picture of Bondi Beach in 2006 where it's all orange as the center of Australia blew out over to New Zealand. Here's a field in Ireland where 145,000 tons of topsoil basically went for a walk one Easter when the rain fell down that would have been equivalent to a normal year's rainfall. The farmer had only taken out his hedges the year before. The field on the right, I stole this from my mentor, Chris Mullins. This is a field in Tanzania. And the hill over here in the distance was the field level last year. The crop didn't establish, and the subsequent rain the following year has lowered the field level by almost 1 meter. The sparse patchiness of that maize is because the topsoil's lost their planting into a structurally collapsed subsoil that is nutritionally even poorer than the soil that was above it to start with. So without a doubt, land degradation impacts on our yields. How do we then drive some of these changes? Should policy be the answer for doing this? Well, what should soil policy do then? If soils are fragile, if they're non-renewable, if we all rely on them for all of our food and fiber production, then shouldn't they be our greatest asset? And shouldn't we protect our greatest assets? I think so. I've thrown up a map here of Scotland's land capability for agriculture. And all I want you to take away from this is one of the areas there is brown. You can't really see it on that map at that side because it's tiny. But just out here, just to the the east of Edinburgh is a little bit of brown and up into the East Nuka Fife. And the reason I think this is important is when Scotland looked at creating policies around soil use or what soil is capable of, it didn't really push hard enough, in my opinion. There's this little tiny patch, 92 square kilometres of this Class 1 land in Scotland. And roughly a quarter of it sits just outside the capital city of Edinburgh. And what do they want to do? They want to build 3,000 houses on it for commuters to get to and from Edinburgh easily. It's the best agricultural land in the world. And they want to build houses. Policy should be saying, that's the best agricultural land in the world. That's a really, really rare resource. You've got to keep it for that. Policies, I think, also need to be aspirational. Prescriptive farming fails. Wherever you see it, it has failed. Throughout history, there are countless examples of where someone somewhere has said, this is how to farm, extrapolates it to the wider environment, and it doesn't work everywhere, and we see system collapse. So we have to have aspirational types of approaches. Regulation really is rarely efficient. So let's let the people who manage that land, let's give them the trust that they can do the right thing, and let's encourage those practice changes rather than saying you have to let it happen like this. I think we have to bear in mind as well that policy sets our guidelines, but how do you deliver that policy? How do you get the ideas that it encapsulates out to the farmers? And when you think about the governance of our soil, how we actually manage that soil health, is that just from the top, from the political standpoint? Surely the land managers, the people who are actually doing, are the ones that are driving a lot of those decisions. So the governance of our soil works at many, many levels. And what we need to make sure is we have connection between those levels. All too often in this modern world, our extension efforts or our, state in Australia, our statewide engagement and extension services have collapsed. They've been gotten rid of. And now we have a disconnect and people feel lost and isolated. So farmers now learn from farmers, which is great if farmers are doing the right thing to start with. Soil health in relation to these policy ideas may well be a nice motivator, but it's likely to be more of an outcome. That's just something to think about. And the other thing, when it comes to our soils, make change to see those real deliverables actually impact on any of the tests that we can throw at it. It takes time. The Rothamsted experiment showed us that it takes about 20 years to stabilize a system to a new carbon level. There are many other examples since then. I've worked a lot with composts and biosolids. 10 to 15 years of continual application, and we get to a standard level of a new equilibrium in those systems. It's time. And the problem with policy is often it's being made by governments or government officials who have 3 to 4 years in power before they may or may not be out. And we're talking about agricultural systems, that have a much longer window to make those changes happen. So in summary, soil health, what is it? Well, never mind what it is. As long as we accept that soil is a finite, non-renewable resource, then I think we start to encourage that growth and respect for it. Part of it's actually getting it into our education systems, to have children exposed to soil and some understanding of it at an early age so that they actually grow up realizing that this is something that is precious and is important for their longevity on this planet. Our soil health is therefore important. There's no if, buts, or maybes. But what it is, who knows? Does it really matter? Man's activities, what we do, is often degrading our soil. And I have to think about that at a number of levels, all those functions that we do, roads, houses, infrastructure, food and fiber production has to surely be the prioritized one of those. Because soil degradation, no matter what form it takes, does lead to a loss in productivity. It's that simple. And the real important bit, I guess the real take home is, we know that soil properties vary over both space, but also within time. And it may never be the case that we have a single indicator that adequately predicts our soil health. But perhaps if we just measure our healthy soil practices, we can get a good understanding of just what it is we're doing and just how caring, if you like, our farmers, our landholders, our managers are about their soil. And maybe the best way to go forward, to push practices over finite measurements. But obviously, we're very keen on productivity, so we want to see profitability there as well. Perhaps that in itself is a good measure. And with that, I will thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Oliver. You took us to a different world altogether. A lot of food for thought you gave us that we need to realize that soil is alive. That was the first statement that you made, which started this thought process. Second is that cotton may be a renewable resource, but soil is not. And we need to conserve and preserve soil just like our own life, because our whole next generation depends on how we preserve our soil right now. And the three takeaways that I think were maximize soil cover, minimize the disturbance, and maximize living roots. We will speak on that when I end this event in my last statement. But before that, we have an open house here. If anybody needs to ask any questions, two ways: they can either post it in the chat or they can raise their hand and ask the questions. One question that has come from Dr. J.P. Kulkarni, I will read that out for you, Dr. Oliver. What are those key agronomic practices being followed in Australia, which Indian farmers can adopt for improving soil health and cotton productivity? I mean, accepting the limitations of 70% rain-fed area and, of course, the climate change issue that we have these days.
Yes, I was noticing the under comment about the fact that rainfall is erratic. Yeah. And I think, but that's also where to start. I think that's important. Too often, we say, yeah, you grow the cotton crop and get the cover in straight away. But if we don't have the water, we can't get that crop in. We can't get something else to reestablish. So it's about thinking, okay, well, where can we do that? Can we, if we can get a rotation going whereby we can capture rainfall when it occurs, then that's maybe enough. And sometimes that's obviously about opening those conversations about fallow efficiency and ground cover. And you don't have to grow another crop. You sometimes just need to get cover there when you can. So that's a real big driver. At the same time, avoiding tillage is a great way for maintaining surface structure in many situations, but not in all. And I'm definitely not one to say you should put the plow away forever and a day. For me, the plow is a tool in the toolbox. And if you need it because a pest has got away from you or a weed pressure is high, then yes, use it. But if you can avoid it at all costs, do try to. And some might say, well, that means more hours in the paddock with a chipping hoe or whatever. But that's the way we approach it. The things that we're adopting here, or the things we're pushing harder, are mostly around those tillage applications. They're also about looking for opportunistic cover and diversifying the system. That's something else that's happening as well. A lot of people have actually increased their livestock so that they can grow a pasture cover, which is reverting back to like those days of a lay pasture. Yeah, crop, lay pasture, and then crop, when the fertility is rebuilt. There are opportunities in that space that I think could be shared quite happily between us.
Thank you, Dr. Oliver. We have Suresh Bhai Kotak with us. He is known as the Cotton Man of India. And Suresh Bhai, would you like to share your thoughts, or do you need to ask anything to Dr. Oliver here? And anything about the initiative, this collaboration of Australia and India?
Yeah. Please unmute me.
Yes. Yeah, Vivek. Yeah, you are on unmute, Suresh Bhai.
It is a brilliant lecture, brilliant exposition, Mr. Oliver. My congratulations. Now, adjunct to what Manish Bhai said, I also want to ask if the soil is finite. Then what should be done? I mean, keeping healthy is one thing. It is live is another thing. But how to regain the health? Say, can carbon or carbon, say carbon sequestration, or because carbon using the soil as a carbon sink or a carbon storage or something to do that kind of thing would help the reformation of the soil to the best use.
So I agree that, I strongly believe that getting more carbon into our systems is very important, but it has to be the right kind of carbon, or we have to think about what it is we're trying to achieve. If we just want to sequester carbon, then cementation processes, biochar processes, all of these things will add carbon to our soils, but it's not in the carbon that's going to create that biology. And the reason that that's important is to get our aggregate stability, to get our improved structure, we need an active biology that's producing the glues, the polysaccharides that stick our mineral soil together to create our aggregate structure. We need the food that's going to feed the fungi, the breakdown of cellulose and lignin products that will wrap their hyphae around that mineral structure and again give us aggregate stability. And the challenge that I think both our countries face is when we're limited by rainfall or when we experience excessive rainfall, we have that ability to grow plants, but the soil biology, even when the plants struggle due to either too much or too little water, our soil biology continues to function. It's constantly eating away at those soil organic matter. It's part of it. Our challenge as producers is to keep feeding that system to the point that we really are saturating the hunger of that soil biology for that organic matter. So it's important we feed the system. It's important we try to feed the system as much as we can and as diverse a diet as we can, because then we get a really nice network of biology that will often bring other ecosystem services. So yes, I do agree with you that definitely we want to try and encourage carbon in our systems, but the type of carbon, I think, is something we need to definitely consider when we're doing that.
We have been recommended that can help the reformulation and the kind of the productivity which Brazil also gets is due to the soil reconstruction by various kind of worms, which we also use it. Can those worms and the carbon and all that thing can make it revival or rejuvenate the soil?
Biochar could definitely help in that space where I guess soil is needing to be structurally enlightened. So biochar is great for doing that. It's great for helping with, somebody mentioned at the start, the over-fertilization issues. That's that cellular structure of it, that ability to hold onto soil moisture and soil nutrients, and therefore prevent the losses during high rainfall events is very important. Does it fix everything? No. Does it work in every soil type? I don't believe so from the work I've done and the work I've seen. Is it a tool that we have access to? Certainly. Is it an energy source, a waste diversion source? It is all of these things, but it won't work everywhere. And the other thing that worries me slightly with some of the biochar work that I've done is that it primes the system often. And you actually end up causing some additional losses of carbon, although you're putting in a recalcitrant form into the soil. And that's the bit that I guess we need to bear in mind. Are we trying to divert waste streams, gain double bites of energy out of it, and just add carbon to our system? Or do we want carbon that's going to help feed that biology? And for me, as a biologist, someone looking to try and grow that productivity, it's about that labile stuff. Worms, I don't know what the worm status is like in India. I don't know what your worms are like. Here in Australia, we rarely encounter soil earthworms unless we're in the southern states. Most of our worms are generally not of huge benefit. That mixing of the soil that worms do, phenomenal, but they just don't play a huge part in our systems here. Instead, we have our ants and our termites and other microarthropods that basically conduct those functions for us and are therefore more important than earthworms. It's just a sad fact that some of them are also slightly root herbivorous and can cause us some downsides as well. But it's whatever you can gain access to and fits in your system. Again, it's that difference in our landscapes. What works where we are? And again, the best people to tell you that will be the farmers that have worked that land for generations often.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suresh Bhai. Dr. Venugopal from CICI is also here. Shri Sanjay Panigrai from Cotton Corporation of India is here. Dilip Thakre, who works on high density plantation, is here. Any questions from any of you? Dr. Vijay also.
See, Blaze is his hand up.
Dr. Vijay. Please unmute Dr. Vijay. Dr. Kumar.
Yeah, Manish, thank you, Blaze from CICI. Very nice presentation, very crisp and to the point. You conveyed the message well. I hope I'm audible, right?
You are.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to know, like in Australia, you have cover crops after cotton, right? But
in some areas, yes.
Here we are not in a position to go for a cover crop. In some of my recent experiments, which are yet to be published, but I took up some deep-rooted crops which leave substantial amount of residue on the soil surface. because we do not have farmyard manure, which the farmers would apply traditionally in 20, 30 years ago. But now they rely only on the fertilizers. And when I speak about my experiments, they most most often I come up with criticism that this is not practical, because farmers will not grow a crop which does not fetch any return. But in such a situation, how do we capture the value that these cover crops would provide? You suggested many of the items, but this is one tricky point where we struggle. I don't know about the Australian farmers, how they go about it.
Well, firstly, it's often a challenge of rainfall. So there are those, we have summer and winter dominant areas here in Australia. We have some areas where rain remains unpredictable. And generally it's that water for establishment of a cover crop is the biggest challenge. And even there, although we're trying to push cover cropping, it may be that it doesn't follow cotton. It may actually still be that there's a bit of a fallow. And then we're actually looking at a winter cover crop in the winter dominant rainfall areas. So it's again about getting it right for the system you have. The challenge, I think, that you've touched on there, Blaise, about the value of these things. Some of that is around, the biological value. Oh, and you go, wow, the soil structure, the stability. It's very hard to measure the effects of, say, aggregate structure on it, changes in erosivity of soil. And farmers often don't associate with that. It's hard, I think, to actually take a biological measure and say the value of your changes or increase in biology is this, because it doesn't come across as believable very often. But water, that ability for cover to improve the capture of moisture, is something that I found farmers talk about all over the world. It's the commonality, isn't it? The soil is often taken for granted for some reason, but our addiction to rainfall or our request or requirement for water to grow a crop is a commonality between everybody. So just the water changes. We know the efficiency of a bare fallow is about 20% of the moisture that lands on it is maintained, whereas you add up to 40 to 50% cover, even 70% cover if you can. And we know that infiltration, that recovery of moisture goes up to 75 to 80%, as long as you're in a dominant rainfall area. That's the challenge. So that's how I often look at doing that argument around it. In terms of making it, or I guess in terms of picking it apart further, I'm not an economist, but I have been looking at the work that the Cotton Incorporated have been doing in the USA lately. And in their regenerative cotton practices, where they are also pushing cover cropping, their economic returns are in the order of 10 to 15%. Now, I have to confess, I don't understand all the maths they've thrown at it, but that's what they're talking about with farmers. Not just the water, but putting a dollar value on the economic return. So you're right. It's very hard sometimes to get people to say, grow a crop that will give you no cash return. But if the environment is going to benefit in such a way that actually your profitability or your productivity increases on the back of it, then maybe that's when we can start to have that conversation. But it's a challenge, isn't it, though, to go out to farms and say, you need to grow a sacrificial crop in order to capitalize in the future. It's very hard.
It is indeed. True. Anybody else? Sanjay ji Panigrahi, anything from your side? Vijay Kumar ji, Dr. Jade.
Hello.
Yeah, Dr. Kumar. After that, Sandeep ji, if anything from you. Dr. Kumar. Yes, Dr. Kumar. Not able to hear you. Vivek, see if anything is wrong.
Yeah, everything is right here.
Yeah, can you speak again, Dr. Kumar?
Mr. Kumar can rejoin it if they're facing an issue with the audio.
Yeah, can you try and rejoin, Dr. Kumar? Yes, Dr. Jade. Till Dr. Kumar rejoins.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Manish Dagaji for organizing such a important webinar.
Thank you, Dr.
And
Jade.
also,
It's a collaboration, all three of us together, and of course, with Dr. Oliver Knox and all of you. Please continue.
also congratulate for the collaborative work between Australia and India. Today's topic is the productivity of the cotton related to soil health. Absolutely, there is a positive correlation between the soil health and cotton productivity. Very nice presentation given by the Oliver Knox. I also congratulate to Oliver Knox also. By profession, I am a soil scientist. In India, particularly regarding cotton, around 30% area is under cotton in India. But productivity is low due to the soil health. And farmers who are the end user growing the cotton, they do not understand the cotton crop as well as soil also. So there is the need of aggressive or massive campaign for the improving soil health and crop geometry of the cotton, which are the very important aspect getting the productivity of the cotton. That's why second thing, most of the cotton cultivated in our state is rain-fed cotton. Around 40% cotton is cultivated under rain-fed and 60% around the irrigated cotton in northern zones and southern zone, and particularly central part of Madhya Pradesh and Gujarat. But even productivity is low due to the low organic carbon content. So low organic carbon can be improved by the using this stubbles or cotton waste, or that is recycling of the cotton waste in the soil that we using by shredders. So almost all farmers should be convinced for the using the shredder machines after the cotton picking, that it will also help improve the soil health. And soil structure and texture, these are two important parameters which regarding the soil health is concerned. So we have to again educate to the farmers regarding the soil health, physical, chemical, and biological. So farmer has to take the care of from the chemical health of the soil, because most of the farmers, they are reliable or rely on only chemical fertilizers. So that's why they are missing these two linkages. So that's how to convince the farmers in our country is again it's a need of our, and you have to take a massive and aggressive campaign for it. Very nice presentation, and thanks to Manish Dagaji for giving the opportunity to participate in such a type of important webinar. Again, I would like to congratulate to Oliver Knox. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Jade. Dr. Kumar, can you speak now? We'll try and catch you if you can speak. Again, yes, there's some sound issue.
Please unmute.
Yes.
Am I audible now?
You
Okay.
are definitely.
Okay. So first of all, thank you, Oliver, for making a very good presentation about your work in Australia. Now, my concern is this, that in India, the holdings are very small. Okay, unlike Australia, the farmers have poor investment capacity to an agriculture. Third is their a lack of knowledge and education. Now, with these three limited, besides the climate and all those things, now with these three limitations, how your knowledge or technology can help our Indian cotton farmers?
Well, that's really a tough one, isn't it? It's at the same time, I think some of those challenges are possibly also opportunities as well. The size, I mean, I know recently we were talking about biosolids here in Australia, and I have clients that I work with who get a lot of biosolids out of some of the major cities, and they use them every year. And you go, it's brilliant. And we look at the issues, but the nutritional value is phenomenal. However, there's now concern with plastic pollution and microplastics. And you start to go, so things are changing. But we actually looked, and if we spread the biosolids that come out of our major cities across every farm, you'd be lucky if you got 5 kilos per farm. So it's a major challenge. Our scale is very, very different. Yes. So a smaller holding sometimes has opportunity just in terms of access changes. It's the pressures that live elsewhere in the system that become your constraints, isn't it? And how we overcome those when they're maybe social in form, I do not know. And I have no answer for you there, I'm afraid. That said, my only conversations with people from India is often that you still have much better extension services, and you still have extension services. We have a few individuals covering our entire industry, whereas you, I believe, still have people in districts engaging with farmers, talking to farmers. You still have that potential to do that knowledge sharing in a way that we have lost here. And for that, I think you need to be applauded. And it's about using that in conjunction with those constraints that they will know, that your farmers will know, to say, okay, we need to do things slightly better. What are the incremental goals we can make? Where can we make slight changes? Can we leave some more residue? Can we find another source of organics that is affordable, that in theory might help us build our systems? Mechanization and size doesn't always have to be the answer, I suppose, but it's that realism. And it's a huge challenge. So I'm sorry I can't give you here's what you must do, because I don't have that.
But in any case, we continue the dialogue, We continue the dialogue.
Sorry, what's that?
We continue the dialogue with you.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Till we find the right solution. That is what this platform is all here for. We know it's a big challenge. We know it's a big task and easier said than done. But we need to do it. There is not only a need, there is an emergency that this has to be taken on top priority, because raw material security and food security both do matter a lot for the sustainable future that we all are aspiring for. So I think, Dr. Oliver, please take it positively. Any question is not a grilling question, but it is to drill, find out the right ore from the mining, and then get it out as a solution to a sustainable future. Right. So and regarding technology, Dr. Knox, what are the applications of GIS? Is Australia using it, to map the soil or test the soil? And is remote sensing really working in agriculture?
It does, and it doesn't.
Okay. Please don't be too diplomatic.
We have some phenomenal tools that we can use in our winter cereals and use that to identify areas of fields that are constrained, which is very, very handy if we then have access to, say, precision fertilizer technology, but not everybody does. It only works with that. Cotton, as we know, is a very compensatory plant, so it often throws a bit of a spanner into some of that far edge NDVI type calculations. But we're using it. We are still using it. And the idea is hopefully the hyperspectral stuff will start to give us insight into production issues and challenges. A lot of our soils have been mapped in many of our production areas, and those maps exist in the digital area. And we only had a huge launch of some of that earlier this year with a thing called ANSYS. How useful is it to farmers, though? That's a very different question, because it's been created by scientists to share our wonderful knowledge base, but we still don't have that interface with the farmers. They still don't use it in a way that is predictive or helpful to them in many cases. But the challenge there is it's mapped at a scale that is often too big for the field or for the section of field we want. And then we have to turn around and say to the people that will come out and maybe run an EM survey that's GIS located or GPS located to a field, soil test within it, create our algorithms, and then go back and do our own thing. But again, it's that we can measure all sorts of things, but there's only so much that we can manage. A third of our industry is in areas that are very sodic. And people say, you just got to go out and put out loads of gypsum. But the tonnage of gypsum that would be required is prohibitive. So often we have these incredible tools we can use them very well to find out where we should be and where the problems sit, but it still doesn't mean we can actually make the changes that might be needed to increase our productivity en masse. So again, it's about those aspirational small steps to make incremental changes over time.
True. On one side, it's an advantage. On the other side, it's a challenge. I agree with you. Size is definitely that. One or two more questions and two hands I see raised. Harivaram, Mr. Harivaram, would you like to introduce yourself and please ask the question as straight and short as possible?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
I am Adinarayana from Andhra Pradesh. I am a farmer actually. I had an opportunity to join this meeting through Cotton Merchants Association local. Although the question raised by Dr. Kumar is right, here the holdings are very small. That is the crux of the problem which we face. And another thing is technology transfer is not adequate. And another thing is what the agronomists or the scientists make recommendations that are not followed by farmers because of not having proper extension activities with the concerned governments. Really, the farmers, especially cotton farmers, are facing very hardship and they're committing suicides. So this is the situation. And how is this? That immediate question is how to make the farmers confident to cultivate cotton. We are discussing the problems of the agronomy or scientists, carbon, all the things. Everything is right. But what about the real farmer who is tilling the soil, especially the Indian system it is mostly tenant farmers who are depending, especially in Maharashtra and Telangana and Andhra. So many farmers are facing hardship with committing suicides. What is the solution which this platform or this meeting can provide me, please?
Dr. Oliver, it really means is cotton agriculture profitable enough and can soil, contribute to that? Will we be able to retain the farmers in cotton agriculture, through this journey of soil conservation?
Well, I'm sorry to hear there's such hardships and it's resulting in people's loss of life. That's always terrible. I guess I don't know if there are other alternatives. I don't know if it's the potential profitability of cotton that drives its production in these systems, or what the alternatives might be. So that's where I guess I'd start by asking what they are. The small holdings, I don't know if you form cooperatives very often. If several farmers can bind together to create larger networks or share their information. Also, it's weird. We might be at a different scale with our farms here in Australia, but one of the things that works very effectively is still what we call our area-wide groups, where you have to talk to your neighbor, and all your neighbors in the valley talk to each other, because it gives us opportunity. It gives us strength and ideas. It's where a lot of the changes that we see delivered actually come about. So there is often that strength in having that communication with your neighbors and colleagues. But again, I must apologize that I'm not overly familiar with your system.
Yes, but yes, united and through a cooperative system, we do have a farmer producer organization system here coming in India, where an organized group of farmers actually form companies. They register the companies, then they come together, work as a unit, and then they have a hierarchy of a chairman, a secretary, and a CEO. So it works like a company, and that is doing better than individual farmers. That is, of course, definitely the future that we are all looking at, and that is what I also represent. A family of 200 such farmer producer organization, and I would invite the farmer here attending, Mr. Harivaram, you also be part of such an organization. You can join us or any other farmer producer organization, so that you work as a unit. It is a collective effort which is going to find results, which is going to take us through this difficult period. And thanks for sharing your views. Hetal Shah, anything from your side?
Hello.
You have to unmute.
Please. Hello, one suggestion. You are telling about farmers organization. In our area, there is no such organization. I am ready to organize. Can you give you guidelines, please? How to form the farmers organization? How to register the society? There is not a single society in our area.
We can
Please.
definitely do that. We will share our details with you. You can connect with us. We will help you make a group within your farm community in your area, so that
Yes, please.
work as a collective or a cooperative unit.
Okay, I can organize a collective for the only thing is how to organize, what is the procedure, and do you need any permission from the government?
It
What
will
are
be
the incentives?
there are a lot of benefits, in fact, that the government
So
passes on to
please, can I get that information? How can I get the information for me? Can this meeting be useful for me to go ahead with the forming a society in next year?
Sure. I have shared my number in the chat. You can contact after the event, and we will definitely connect you to one of my team members who would guide you through the process.
Okay, you are Mr. Your number?
Anish Daga.
Anish?
Daga, Mr. Daga.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Hital, I have unmuted you. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm audible?
Yes.
Yeah. I know Manish sir, I think we met in 2-3 conferences because we are living in India. So somewhere we are meeting in any conferences. So sir, thank you for this collaboration and nice initiative. Let me introduce myself. I'm Hital Shah from India and my company name is Amiha Agro. I am a truly extension worker working with 50,000 farmers in various parts of India, cotton, rice, and turmeric. So looking to my experiences, yes, we all are talking about the soil, we all are having lots of data. But looking to the Indian farmer, if I can share my grassroots level experiences, the challenges is that we have a lots of farmers and we have a less number of researchers and scientists. Again, that we have lots of data, but the only challenge is that the data is not converted into simple language or simple package of practice which can be adopted by farmers at local level. So this is a good association, I think, and we have lots of challenges, lots of issues coming ahead, and lots of issues will come. But my suggestion is that at least in this group we can take up one issue and we all will work for that issue for the better solution. So rather than question marking, we can have one strategy that if we have some data, like we have a soil carbon increase data or some practices, so or data, because we all have a package of practices, but we are missing the data. So if help of scientists, we can add those data in our package of practices. Let's say I'm not an agriculture person, but let's give one example that if I can do minimum tillage or no tillage, we can save carbon. If we can cover our composting cow dung heap with plastic or grass, then we can save methane, right? So these are the simple things we can do it. But as an extension worker, I'm missing those data. If I can go to the farmer and I can tell with the data, then it is very easily we can change the mindset. So Manishi, this is my request that we have lots of scientists, Australian knowledge, Indian knowledge, CICR with us, so we can merge their knowledge with our extensive services and make our package of practice which is locally adopted and supported by data. So we can easily convince farmer with the numbers. That is what my one suggestion or one requirement looking to my experience. Thank you.
Very valid and very relevant suggestion, Ethelben. You are a practical person. I know that, a ground action oriented person, and the suggestion was to the mark. Any last comment from anybody else before we have the closing statement?
Thank you, sir.
Please raise your hand. Anything from Sanjay Panigrahi ji or Sandeep Sabharwal before we end, or Venugopal ji? Yeah, Sandeep ji.
एक्चुअली मेजरेबल नहीं है ना मैम. एक्चुअली जो फैक्ट है कि जैसे सपोर्ट प्राइस क्या रहेगा, कितना.
Yeah, Sandeep ji.
Mute me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thanks to all the dignitaries from Australia and India here. And right in the beginning, in the chat box, I had typed out that we are a technology startup, agri-tech startups based out of Gujarat. And we are probably one of the very few groups in the country today who are practicing the Abholkar methodology of farming, which is NatureEco. And I have already chat box videos where one ICRISAT scientist, late Dr. Om Prakash Rupela, will be telling you in one video that one of the trial pilots that we did about 10 years ago, they tested our soil, and NatureEco farming, they help you by a methodology. That methodology video also I have posted there in the web talk. Within 2 years, the soil organic carbon can reach 2% extra, 2 to 3% extra. Why do I say this with so much conviction? Because we ourselves are right now engaged with close to 60,000 farmers in different parts of Gujarat. And for our services, we are being compensated for either by GUPCA, which is Gujarat Organic Producers Certification Agency, or by some local CSRs. But I personally believe that after 3 decades of having worked closely with rain-fed farming areas in the country, almost 13 states, right now I'm based out of Karnataka, but most of our projects are in Gujarat. Do visit those 2 web links which I've shared with you, and you are welcome. We are all, and very thankful to Manishi that, and I constantly keep repeating this on the web in the chat box, that please make a WhatsApp group or some social media group where we can start exchanging solutions right away. And with Hetal Ben's kind of persons involved here, we are very sure that we will be able to demonstrate this particular methodology, which is really noteworthy. That's the only thing I wanted to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. So, Dr. Oliver, one last straight question to you. What is the way ahead? I mean, if there was one thing that we could all do together on this platform, this is not just an interactive platform. We want to make it a strategy-oriented and execution-oriented platform. That is what was the thought when myself, Richard, and Cotton Australia, Adam got together, that we need to have action here. We need to have a right strategy and a right action. So what is the way ahead? I mean, who should be the initiator? It has to be a public-private partnership, or do we encourage the government to be the initiator, or has it to be the farmer or the industry? And what is the first thing that we need to do? Dr. Oliver, based on your experience in Australia, I'm speaking to you because Australia has been doing it consistently. Productivity is the pain that the Indian farmers are facing. That is why retaining the farmers is an issue right now. And you heard that from the horse's mouth, the farmer speaking himself. So where do we get started?
You have to give the farmers the confidence to drive that process, any process. And how you do that, I mean, in my experience in Australia, most of our farmers are already primed. They're already wanting change. So they're set, they're ready to go. They just haven't got the opportunity. And all too often, I guess, government's potential is to throw a bit of money at that opportunity and say, here's some money, make it happen. But often it's actually more than that. They need someone to maybe be there to, I'm going to say, hold their hand, but to provide that advice, that guidance. And generally as well, farmers are often looking to see where has it already happened and how well did it progress. So it's providing that access to field trials, to provide the confidence. The opportunity can come in many, many ways, but we want behavioral change. We need to see practice changes that will elevate the status of our care for the soil, that will then impact on our profitability and productivity, and in turn make better farmers. It's not an easy move. It's not a quick solution either. That's also something that is important. I think that all of these things take time, but you've got to be willing to go the long haul. But it's done by conversations, by support, by evidence. And it really is about opening those conversations. As Hetal said, she's on the ground getting her boots dirty with farmers. That's where it starts. And scientists in Australia, there's not a huge number of us either. Farmers are often doing things that are hugely inventive, and then the science tries to catch up. Trust your farmers. Believe in your land managers. Many of them are already doing the right thing. They just want to get better. So how can we help them? Any way you can help them is going to make things better.
True. Trust is the basis of any relationship. So if we need to have that, concrete relationship with sustainability, we need to develop that with the farmer, and that starts with trust. So any matrices that you would like to set, we have started this journey now of sustainable agriculture through soil conservation, increasing productivity. Do you want to set any metrics right now, so that when we get back to our desk, we are going to make a WhatsApp group of all the attendees. They are from diversified backgrounds. You have seen scientists, farmers, and farmer cooperatives also. Even corporates have joined. Pratibha Syntex has joined. So even corporates and even thought leaders like Suresh G. Kotak has joined. Any metrics that you would like to set, for us here?
If productivity is at the heart of our systems, if that's where our growers are making their money, if that's what's also causing them to I mean, someone mentioned, they're taking their lives. It's about that. You don't need to focus specifically on individual aspects of the soil, profitability at the farm scale, productivity, and the practice changes that are being used to drive that, both now and hopefully into the future. Getting measures and indicators of those are probably where it all starts. I know here in Australia, I didn't really touch on it, but a lot of ours were driven by externalities. What the people that are using our cotton are looking for, that social license. They want us to do better. They want us to see evidence of our environmental impact or our environmental costs of whatever we're doing. So having those level of environmental audits and be able to present the data as to what's happening on farm and why it's happening on farm, I think is important for the social aspect, but for the farmers themselves, productivity. If you know what you have now, if you can encourage some practice change and look back in 5 years' time or more to see where that's taken you, then I think we're on the right path.
Right. So 5-year metrics, productivity, profitability, and practices. We keep the 3 Ps in mind, and we focus on that. And we will definitely come back to you, Dr. Oliver, with whatever we have identified at our end. I would invite you, to share some data about Australia also to help us, try to understand that how much is the gap and how do we bridge that gap. Any last word from you, Suresh Bhai, before we end the session? On the collaboration, on the initiative, anything that you would like to share?
I can tell you that, this is a remarkable dialogue. And what I feel out of it, that one of the point of success of Reach Out in Australia is their system of BMP. And various questions that has been asked, I would like Oliver G. or Mr. Oliver Knox to enlighten us the efficacy of BMP-like system in India.
Wow, that's a huge question. The BMP program, the Best Management Practice program, is a big part of our Australian cotton production. It's where, when we get to a level of auditing, we actually gain access to additional markets to increase our bale price. It has a 12-year history at least now. It's gone through several iterations of change. It is reviewed almost annually. Those of us in charge of various sections review it. And it is aspirational, though. We meet at the first level the legal requirements, at the second level what we would like to see as many of our growers doing. And at the upper tier, it really is that these are the farmers that are doing things that are so unique, so phenomenal, that we're all wishing that we could do that. But again, it only works if it's supported. Well, there are other industries in Australia that have best management practice schemes that have very low adoption because they weren't supported. It's about that journey with the farmer to give them the confidence that the system that you have, the production methodologies you're promoting, actually align with what they are capable of doing on the farm. And that might be a bigger challenge for you, maybe because of your sizes, because of your differences in production systems. So it may be that you'd need several different forms of my BMP to actually meet their needs. But developing it with the farmers, encourage farmer engagement, and then delivery. If you wanted a final comment, we often talk about research and development, and we miss out the engagement. The reality of it is, for most research to actually find its way into a farm, what we actually need is engagement with the farmers, development with the farmers, and then the research to underpin the practice change we're trying to push. Sometimes we just got to change our thinking And you might say it's just moving letters around, but actually it's a very different approach to how we undertake science. But My BMP works because it was developed with the farmers, for the farmers, and ideally is then supported as farmers continue to grow with the system.
Great, very relevant question and an important takeaway here before we end today's event. Two things we would request you, Dr. Oliver, please share your presentation if you do not mind. Many of our viewers have requested that you would share them with all. And second thing, anything that you can share about the BMP, as Mr. Suresh Bhai mentioned, that that would be a beginning for us, that best management practices program. So can that be started at a micro scale also in India, maybe a district to start with? Can we do that here so that we have the feel of that success that you have already tasted? We need to have a feel of it first. So let this virtual be converted into actual, maybe at a micro scale. If you can share something on that, which would be a beginning for us, highly appreciated on that. And anything else that you would like to share, Dr. Oliver? How did you feel sharing? How were the questions, and how was the event in all?
Very privileged to be asked, and I hope. Oh, it sounds like you've got something from this. I've certainly got something from this, and part of me kind of thinks, now, gosh, I want to get across to India and see some of your cotton. You never know; maybe that's still possible. But thank you very much for your time and for entertaining me this evening. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, possibility is what we are looking at all the time, because that is what drives us for a better tomorrow. Everybody of us knows the challenges, but we all know somewhere, somehow there is a solution. We may not be able to put our finger to it right now, but we know it is there within us, within this group. And Dr. Oliver has helped us, to have enlightened us with his experience and his expertise to get the thought process started. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, Australia High Commission, Dr. Richard. Thank you, Adam K, CEO, Cotton Australia. Very special thanks to Dr. Oliver for being part of our journey for improving productivity and strengthening the relationship between Australia and India. Thank all of you who have attended, and Shubh Mangal Kamna from this collaboration to all of you. We would definitely strive together for a better tomorrow. This is only the beginning.